Jenn and Marcus go skydiving. Jenn's suitors dress as Crocodile Dundee for a photo shoot in the Outback. And tensions soar between off-brand Pete Davidson and Derek Huff, a.k.a. Devin and Aaron. Feuding, a fake self-help book, and so much ice cream. The gang is in Australia, and it's hot as hell down under on week 2 of The Bachelorette.
Just let me take, bro.
You are watching Reader Seeks Romance Channel's Romance Recap, The Bachelorette Season 21. And we're dissecting and discussing Jenn Tran's rose petal journey to finding ferocious love. It's shot o'clock, so let's get this party started.
Shot o'clock! Let's get it!
I am Liz Donatelli.
And I'm Tiffany Current.
Be sure to subscribe to Reader Seeks Romance Channel so that you don't miss weekly episodes of Romance Recap only on YouTube. Tiffany, I want to dive right in. Devin, bully or not?
You know what? At first, I thought he was not. But then as time went on, I'm like, man, this guy he's a complete bully. I think what the guys were saying was like he is at least being himself, but himself is an asshole is what I realized watching the show. I'm just not feeling Devin. What about you?
I'm surprisingly on Team Devin. I think all of the other suitors are being real pusses about this whole situation. Doesn't anyone watch the show? This is how it is played. This is the dance that you do. You have to, really take the time away from other bachelors to, make your mark.
No.
The other thing is that Jenn could completely be like, no, I want to spend time with someone. Like, she has agency, I would like to think. Anyway, I am about Devin. He's a man of action. I think he is being bullied.
I don't think he's being bullied. I think bully is too strong of a word to use for him. I think he's being unfair. I realize this is a game. And some of what he was doing to Aaron at that point, that became like he was poking the bear, I think, as Aaron said. But then later on when he said like, yeah, you guys should have your time. And then he jumped in first. I was like, this guy, I was done with him at that point.
He did mention, I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but Devin did tell everybody that he grabbed Jenn first at the cocktail party so that way he could have his time and then be done and then give the rest of the time to the other guys. Now, do I think that was truthful? No, I think he just said that. But either way, this is how it goes. This is the dance we do on The Bachelor, Bachelorette, any of the shows in the franchise.
I disagree, but I will say that explains the opener of the show. The show opened with the drama, and I was like, again, with like Thomas Wynn and like what's happening? And then it was revealed. I'm like, okay, so this is a Devin storyline. Apparently, this is the Devin episode. But that was a fun beginning, and then we kind of dove straight into Australia randomly.
Yes, and I guess you're supposed to pronounce it Melbourne. That's what Jenn said. Melbourne?
Yeah, I was like,
Melbourne or Melbourne?
I've never heard of that before. Maybe it is. I thought it was Melbourne. I was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah. They begin with a group date, and there's like 8 in this group date to the Queen Victoria Market. All I remember is Vegemite, whiskey, and kangaroo testicles consumed by the group.
I had a kangaroo testicle in my mouth.
Can I just tell you something? At first I was watching this and when they were going to the market, they kept showing like kangaroo this, kangaroo that. I'm like, oh, that's cute. They're just making fun of kangaroos. And then later on, I was like, no, they're eating.
Oh, hell no.
I didn't realize they ate kangaroos in Australia. I thought it was like their state animal or their country animal or whatever. Do you eat it?
I think they just eat the testicles, maybe because they neuter them. But here's the thing. What are they doing? Just grabbing kangaroos like out in the wild? And I guess they I guess they do have to kill them.
They're just driving down the street and it just chops off.
Take a machete to the balls. I mean, I just thought, I'm so silly. Whoa. Like, I didn't think of them killing kangaroos because I thought they were revered. They're like worshipped.
That's the animal. Yeah. That's what people think of when they think of Australia, kangaroos.
So I just thought, when kangaroos are neutered, they must just sell the testicles.
They just save it. They just save it. Yeah, that's what they do.
But they must. No,
but they had like kangaroo salami or something or other. I'm looking back.
Oh, is that another thing? Oh, I
They had
didn't
kangaroo
catch that.
salami, and I was like, oh, I'm like, oh, that's interesting that they're calling it that. Thinking it was some like, I don't know, something else.
Oh, I
But
feel
it's
sick.
legit kangaroo. That I don't understand. It was very strange to me. What I
Yeah.
will say, the
Hmm.
standout for me at the market was Sam in, the love virgin.
Oh, yes.
He was like such a Debbie Downer. He's like, no, I can't eat this. I'm allergic to dairy. Everything was like a Debbie Downer of like, oh, I can't eat this. I can't do this. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
salmon.
he's a bit of a wet blanket. And
Yes.
I think that might be because he's inexperienced not only in love but in life and travel.
Yes.
And he was
Yes.
probably he's so far away from his comfort zone, which seems to be his close-knit family. I think that he's just I, unfortunately, I don't think this is the show for him.
No. He needs to be on a different reality show. He needs to be on like
Yeah.
Love at First Sight, where they're just forced together so the
Yeah.
person can't say no about it. That's what he needs to be on. Like not this one
Right.
where they get to choose. This isn't the right show for
You're
him.
right. You know what? I I'll be interested in knowing if he ends up on another show because I don't think he's going to last on this one.
No, or they're just keeping him along for I don't know what, but I
Yeah.
was like, Sam in, you gotta move along, sir. Gotta move along.
The group date at the market is the first time that we're starting to really sense and witness the hostility between
Yes.
Devin and the other guys. So during
Yes.
this fabulous group date, Devin drags, I don't know, yeah, I hate saying drag because it seems like she has no agency, but it's almost like he just takes her hand and leads her away to a gelato stand. I was down
That's
for that.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was
gelato.
like,
It's good
I'll
stuff.
have
Yeah.
gelato. Yeah, sure.
But all of the other suitors are crying foul. Oh, Devin can't just take her away during a group date. And that's an interesting question.
Mm,
During group dates, there is a time where people break off into, separately, right?
yes.
Like I didn't think that was against the rules as everyone seemed to think.
I think the way he did it was, I think in the past, what usually happens is that the producers probably say, you go sit on the bench with this person, go sit on the bench with that person. And
Oh,
he
okay.
took
Oh.
it upon himself to not wait and just took her out of the group date
Oh,
portion.
okay. All
It's a
right.
little unorthodox in a way,
Right.
but they just went to get gelato. At first, I was like, where is he taking her? They don't have a car. They're in a foreign
Yeah.
country. They're in a market. So he
Yeah.
just went around the corner to another stall to get gelato.
Exactly. It was probably like, a foot away or something. It was
Yeah.
not far. And when they have the one on one, what I thought was interesting is Devin is very confident. And he was saying about how he makes no apologies about his approach to dating Jenn and says,
Yes.
I'm not going to apologize to my wedding guests about how I married my wife. And I was like, okay, so this guy's in it to win it. Like he's going to go balls to the wall.
I don't, you know what? At first, this is when I was still okay with Devin. As it went along, because he's like, I'm just being me. I'm just
Right.
being me.
Just let me take, bro.
And I know people who say, I'm just being me. And usually those are the people who you're like, you can't freaking stand because
Mm,
it's all about them all the time. But so far, I was okay.
yeah.
And then from there, I thought they were a little like unkind to him because the next up, they go to this happen to stumble upon an Australian comedy show in the middle of a market. What a coincidence. Yeah, I was like,
I'm so ridiculous. I really did think it was a coincidence. I'm sorry. I think there's a part of me that still holds on to naive beliefs
believing.
because I want to believe that it's not totally fabricated. But okay, go ahead.
It was you know what? It was a comedy show randomly. And first, once again, we've seen the comedy portion before
Yeah.
on the Bachelorette's
Yes.
ones in the past. And they had to quickly come up with material. They get up, Devin goes first, and he makes like a joke about fraternal love. And then from there, it's the onslaught of Devin insults after insults after
Yeah.
insults.
It was a roast with no comedy or jokes. So it was basically
Yes.
just a bitch session where everyone
Yes.
was like, hey, and I think someone even threw oh, and you're ugly. I don't know. It was like the most ridiculous, like
Yes, that was Jeremy. I wrote it down. I'm like, Jerry calls him ugly. I was like, Jeremy, not cool, mood, not cool.
it was really cringe. I was like, oh God, is this going to be a really long segment? And thankfully they must have cut it down considerably because it was pretty quick.
They They knew. And then from there,
Yeah.
we leave out of there, and already we're seeing Aaron. Aaron, who I really liked the first episode.
Mm.
This episode, this man, he took a nosedive for me because like everything was like, he was just too up in his feelings too much.
Yeah.
We get to the nighttime date. And then finally, this is when the other guys get to sit down,
Yeah.
have some time with her. I think one of the first sit downs was with Jonathon, the guy who
Yes.
wore the hospital gown. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really enjoyed him. He was wearing fun socks and glasses. I like Jonathon.
I'll be honest, of all the guys, if I was Jen, Jonathon would be the one I would be attracted to and
Yes.
kind of like, I want to know more. There's something very sexy and confident about him. And what won me over, and I don't know if you have this written down too, is he said to Jen that he's a fat 13-year-old at heart that had a glow up. And I was like, I
No,
love
I missed that. That's
Yes.
so
Yes, he
beautiful.
said that, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, I had a glow up too." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know. Sometimes
Yeah.
people just like to say, "Oh, you did. Oh, so did I." To
Yeah.
make them feel comfortable. But
Yeah.
he seemed really genuine and sweet and kind of shy, which made
Yeah.
me think maybe that's another reason he did the whole hospital
Ah,
bandage thing because of being shy. So anyway, I was like, oh, I really like him. And I'm like, well, then I know she's not going to pick him because
he's a good guy. He's too good of a guy. If he's a good, I'm sorry, Jen. Sorry, Jen. But based on your past record, which you've described, you do
Yeah.
not. You
I
have a broken
know.
picker. You have a broken picker.
Yeah.
From there we move on to Grant. And Grant is growing on me. Grant was the basketball
Yeah.
player now and
Yeah.
finance guy, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And he was hitting her with like deep questions, like what shaped you growing up? And then he was
Yeah.
talking about wanting a family and wanting to be a father and how he's looking for it to start soon. He sounds like he's actually looking for something substantial. And I was very surprised to hear all that from him.
I was shocked too. And that's when I started thinking more kindly towards Grant. Not that I
Yes.
wasn't before, but now I'm like, okay, he's a real solid suitor because he did say like you said, he's ready for a family. She snuggled into him. They shared a kiss. It seemed like a genuine moment.
I agree. They had a real, and she already thinks he's hot. So at least looks wise, she's into him.
Yeah.
So the fact that he actually has something behind his looks was really nice to see. So while this is happening, for some reason, Aaron feels the need. He's one of those guys like someone's got to talk to him. Somebody has to set him straight. I'm like, Aaron, dude. Aaron pulls Devin aside, proceeds to call him Dylan.
When I approached you, it was, hey, I want to talk to Dylan.
But my name's not Dylan, see? And that's another thing. Like, that's a frustrating thing.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, you're asking me about my death, but you don't even know my name.
And tells him, like, the way that you're handling this is wrong. And I honestly put, Devin handled this so well. Like, he was giving, like, I don't know, like being told what to do and how to act specifically by somebody else. And he handled that very well, very graciously, even though internally he's thinking this guy's an idiot, but he handled that very well. And I thought that Aaron was totally out of line there.
And this is why I love you, because we think alike. My note actually said Devin handled this well. Aaron, for whatever reason, feels like he has to be the Jiminy Cricket of the group and be the conscience and be like, hey, I'm just trying to help, which we know he's absolutely not trying to help anybody but himself.
That is correct.
But he says, I doubt your motivation. I doubt your seriousness. And then he spoke for Jenn and said, I've gotten to know Jenn, and Jenn doesn't want to be with a boy.
I just feel like I'm understanding more about Jenn, and she doesn't want to be with a boy.
I don't think I'm a boy. The over-the-top nature that you see, that's your lens. But I'm not here saying that your way is wrong, your way is right. So I don't think it's fair to say that my way is wrong, my way is right.
And Devin was just like, I think he said something to the effect of, you think I'm a boy or I'm not a boy? And he's like, I'm not judging you or saying the way you do things is right or wrong. Basically, please don't do that to me. Like, why do that to me? There is no right or wrong. There's just the way you do it and the way I do it. So I was like, okay, Devin is really showing his maturity. And then Devin says,
and then,
are you going to mention the Pearl comment?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So then on a one-on-one with the camera, Devin says, Aaron's really just mad because he's not talking to Jenn and thinks if he's just lax and cool and wearing pearls, Jen's going to pick him.
Aaron is mad because Aaron is not talking to Jenn, and I think that he's thinking that if he just sits by and is lax and cool and is wearing pearls, you know, Jen's gonna pick him.
And I was wondering, is the pearl necklace like, is it a callback to something, or is that a sexual innuendo? Because that is
I don't know, but I didn't realize, I didn't put it together. Was he wearing a pearl necklace? I think it's
Yes.
just a necklace. Is it a
the
pearl
entire
necklace?
time. The
That's
entire
very
time.
unusual for a man. That's interesting. Necklaces are fine, but pearl necklaces, that's
Yeah.
kind of.
I mean, before I think he was wearing puka shells or something.
Yes.
I felt it right.
This time it was pearls.
Now it was pearls. Now, unless he said, "Hey, I got these from clams." What's it? Clams or oysters? Oysters.
Okay, yeah.
Whoever
He
makes
just put the-
pearls.
He made a
I made
string
it.
and he just put her on his neck.
Right.
What I found to be, at this point, I'm like, Devin is gracious. But then Aaron goes to sit down, have his conversation with Jenn. I don't know what they were talking about. I completely forgot because for some reason we had this whole Jaws music of like, dun it. And while this is happening, we see a tray of ice cream being pushed slowly down a hallway. And I'm like, why are they doing this? This isn't some horror movie where someone's going to explode out of the ice cream. Devin wheels the ice cream in again with his freaking gelato into the room to interrupt Aaron.
My first thought is, there's only one bowl of ice cream. I know they're supposed to
Yes.
share it, but I'd want my own bowl.
Yes. I love how that's the takeaway. Like, he's selfish.
I was like, why? And so Devin, crashes with this ice cream cart. And at that point, my thought was,
Yeah.
I just want Jenn to ride off into the sunset with a bowl of ice cream and put off finding love for another day, Jenn. Just have some ice cream. And then there's a scene later on. Did you see where she's just like devouring the ice cream by herself?
She's binge eating ice cream in the dark. It was like
Yeah.
a shadow. She's like in the corner,
I love
binge
that.
eating ice cream because it's like I can finally eat.
And she was like,
super strange.
like she was just like so happy. She was humming to herself. I said, "This is what I want for you. I want ice cream for you. I want you to get the hell out of
Yes.
Australia and
Yes.
leave these suitors behind."
Get away from these men. The ice cream will always be there for you. The men will not.
That's
just
right.
saying.
Ice cream will always be there.
It's dependable. It'll make you feel better all the time. Whenever you need it, it'll make you feel better. It's always there for you. So we kind of go back and forth between Devin and Aaron and
Yeah.
Devin and Aaron switching back and forth. And what I thought was of note was that Jenn was like, I like that Devin is just being himself. And I'm like, oh my God. When she said that, I was like, this is why.
Yeah.
You have trouble picking men. Because I get it at first, but fine. He interrupts once, then he comes back again. And you're like, I like you being yourself. And it's like, no, this is different. He's doing something different. And it made me a little concerned about her taste in men.
My concern isn't Jenn's attraction and defense of Devin. Her
Yes.
attraction to Sam M and the hot and heavy lusty makeouts. That's my bigger concern. Have to get to my favorite line. So I thought this was great. So during one of the Aaron Devin feuds, Devin says in front of the group of suitors that, I'm not placing judgments on anyone. And again, I feel like that's valid. And he said, Aaron is trying to dissect why I tick the way I tick.
I wrote it
let
down.
me tick.
Just let me tick,
bro.
Just let me tick.
I'm not placing any judgment on anybody or how they do things.
It's only a problem when it impedes on my ability to get to know someone I actually like. If you're hitting it off with Jenn, I'm happy for you.
I am, and you're like trying to dissect why I tick the way I tick. Just let me tick, bro. Let me tick.
I wrote it down too. I'm like, just let me tick. I
Just let me
underlined it.
tick.
I'm like, just let me tick. Hashtag just let me tick.
Yeah.
Yeah, Devin, I got you, dude. I get him. I understand him as a person. I understand he's being true to himself. But to me, he comes off as a person that puts himself first. I'm not sure if you want that in a partner. Either way, group date comes to a close. What I appreciate is that Jenn gives the rose to Grant.
Yes.
Well deserved. Well deserved.
I thought so too. And to be honest, I wasn't sure if she was going to. I said, she might give it to Devin because she loves those bold personalities.
Yes.
She seems to be kind of team Devin. If it's between Devin or Aaron, I think she's team Devin.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was really glad about that. And I was like, okay, I dig that. And I would have liked to have seen more of the conversation between Jenn and Grant because I think there might have been more canoodling and more connection that we were not privy
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
I think you're probably correct about that. Meanwhile, at this point, we finally get to the other solo date, and surprisingly, Captain America, Marcus,
Hmm.
gets the date card.
He does. And I was really excited for him. I wasn't
Yeah.
so thrilled with the whole skydiving date because that's not my jam. But apparently, Jenn always wanted to skydive, was afraid, and really is looking for a partner who will
Mhm.
support her and be there for her. So this was kind of a test for Marcus. And so they each tandem skydove
Yep.
with individual instructors. And at the end, she was exhilarated. She jumps in his arms. She gives him a kiss. And then they have one of the best dates
I
that I
know.
think
In a
I've ever been.
library. I
Oh
think
my
it was
God,
in a
a
library.
gorgeous library.
Yeah.
And man, it was an emotional day. He's a former Army Ranger. He was
Mhm.
injured in a grenade accident, I believe. Almost lost his life. There was a lot of rehab, and he had to rebuild his mental self and become more confident again. Yeah, so Jenn really appreciated
Drama.
all of the vulnerability.
I like
And
drama.
then she mentioned about, again, like the toxic guy she used to date. And I'm like, what
Yes.
kind of D-bags was she meeting that she's just looking for a simple shred of respect? And as soon as you give it to her, she's like, I love you. It's like, I feel for her.
Well, we've seen that she has taste in certain type of men, but even before we get to that,
Yeah.
I'll say what really struck me about his
Yes.
story.
Yeah.
At some point, Marcus said, I wrote it down, that he's aware of how the fragility of life and wants to be a
Mm.
life worth saving. And I was
Yeah.
like, and then he started
Yes.
crying, and then he started crying, and I was like, this man
Yeah.
is amazing. He
Yeah.
is Captain America. He was so, the way that he said that was just so sweet. Like he wants to make sure his life is worth it. These people put their lives in danger to save him, and he wants to just make sure he lives up to it. And I think he's fantastic. I think he's really great.
I do too. I think he's a really beautiful soul.
Yes.
I can't, I can't.
No, I know. I know. I know it. I know it. I know it, Liz. I know it. They're never going to work out. This is not her type.
I
This is
know,
not her type.
but like realistically, it should be fine. So I don't know what happens that makes her not pick him because I'm almost positive she's not going to pick him because
He's not.
he's too real. He's too real, you know?
He's too good of a person. I'm sorry, Jenny, you seem very sweet, but you seem like she keeps saying this, what is it? Not fierce love. She wants a ferocious love,
Yeah.
which means she wants a love that's very intense, right? And there's a certain
Yeah.
type of personality that will give you an intense type of love, and that type of love isn't always sustaining. And that type
Mm,
of personality isn't necessarily, it sounds like she had that in the past. She had ferocious love. She had intense love. And
mm.
this is the reason why she keeps making these mistakes. This guy is fantastic and real, and I just don't think he's a match for her. We'll see. I hope I'm
Yeah.
wrong. He's a fantastic guy.
Oh, I hope I'm wrong too. But yeah, at this point I felt like saying after that library date, it should be game over, as far as I'm concerned. She gives him a rose and they kiss and it's all nicey nicey. And then there's a group date in the outback for the rest of the suitors, right? Like they
Yes.
broke the suitors into two groups. And this
Yes.
is a wildlife shoot. Depending on how the shoot goes, Jenn will pick another suitor for a solo romantic dinner. And this is where we learn that Jenn loves animals again. Well, actually, we already knew, but we see her with the
Did you
koala
say,
bear, and
did she say that she fosters kids in her free time? Or did she mean
Okay,
animals? I heard it and I was like, kids. I was like, did I hear that right?
I rewound it so many times because I thought she said she fosters kids in her spare
Yes.
time, and I'm like,
Yes.
wait, why wasn't this made into a bigger deal?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I was like, kids, and then I realized she said she fosters kittens in her spare time.
Okay. That makes more sense. 'Cause I was
Yeah.
like, kids?
Yeah,
That's
that's what I
heavy.
thought too. I was like, what?
Yeah, I was like, that's something that should have been discussed in one of these dates.
Yeah,
Okay, kittens. That sounds
kittens.
more believable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Thomas Wynn. Can
Yeah.
I just say, what happens later aside, he is growing on me. When he was wearing just the shirt off and the vest, doing this like Crocodile Dundee look, I was like,
Yeah.
I was feeling him. I'm like, maybe because he's just so like has that toned, swimming body, but like
Yeah.
I was feeling him.
I thought he was kind of sexy in
Yeah.
that whole photo shoot. By the end of this episode, I was like, he needs to leave. Did you see the jacket that Sam M, the blonde construction worker, was wearing? He was wearing some leather jacket
No.
that looked like a woman's jacket from the 80s. Had all of these like pleats in the
That's funny.
shoulders. I thought it was
That's
kind of funny. Each guy takes a picture with Jenn, and
Yes.
then there's a wildlife creature. But let's talk about the one that was the most entertaining.
Yeah, okay, like Hakeem is my favorite
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
I loved him last episode. I love him this episode. His expressive eyes, like he needs his own sitcom.
Yes, he
I love
does.
Hakeem. He's hilarious. The minute he said, "I'm afraid of spiders," I was like, I know what's about to happen. I know exactly what's about to happen. That's why you never tell the producers what your worst fear is.
Nope.
You never tell them that. You tell them what your third worst fear is, never the first. And then like he's standing next to her, and right away that ginormous
Yeah.
spider comes out, and I was done.
Yeah.
Done.
Actually, I thought that the spider looked pretty friendly. Like it wasn't
Whoa.
it looked small and dainty. I was like, oh, it doesn't
No.
look too bad. No, he was freaking out. Yeah, he was
It
absolutely.
moved. I could, because it just started crawling up his arm, and he kept saying like, "Is it gonna stop?" And I was concerned. I'm like, "Where's the spider gonna go?" It was gross. It was gross.
But he
I'm
handled
sorry.
it okay. He handled it okay. I guess he faced his fear.
Yeah.
And then it was Jen's turn to face her fear. She said
Yes.
she was afraid of snakes. I don't really think so because she didn't seem too freaked out, but she
Yeah.
wanted a suitor to join her for the snake photo. And the only person who stepped up is Dylan. And that's when I realized, oh, there is a Dylan on the cast because being Aaron kept calling Devin Dylan. I was like, where's he getting Dylan from?
I want to talk to Dylan
But
because
my name's not Dylan.
Can I just say, I didn't realize how tall Dylan was until
Yeah.
he stood next to her. I'm like, this man is super tall. This is ridiculous.
He's super tall. And oh my God, he's adorable. Dylan is just adorable.
Once again.
Yeah, I know.
We have another adorable suitor who she ends up picking to be her solo date later.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's super sweet. They have a real conversation. He talks about his parents, how they got married after, I think, 6 months. And that every single time his mom steps in the car with his dad plays the same song over. And I'm like, this is a wonderful, loving man. It was a really nice conversation. She gives him a rose at the end.
Yeah.
And a kiss. But I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, what I thought sounds promising is that he has positive marriage role models in his life.
Yes.
So you would think that that would be very appealing to Jenn, another viable suitor who probably will not make it to hometown.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
I know.
So Thomas, and I thought it was Johan.
Okay. I don't know what it was, but yes, a man, another suitor. The point is, Thomas went and some other guy had a conversation with the rest of the group.
Yeah. And they're like, hey, can you guys just kind of back off all the guys who've had time with Jenn and give time to us and some of the other guys? And I wrote down in my notes, bad form. Have any of these guys ever watched The Bachelorette? I'm sorry. You have got to show that you can, be a man who's going to go after what you want. No apologies.
I don't like where you're coming from. I don't like your perspective. I disagree with you. No. I feel like they were trying to talk to the common courtesy of the group, and everyone seemed to agree with it. They're just like, you know what, you're right. That's fair. We'll let you get this now. We'll hit you up down the line. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be a divisive environment. They're trying to be inclusive and nice and build and have a nice bro nature, not the negative, toxic relationship that we're seeing fed on television. We wanted a nice feel. They asked for it. All the guys agreed. Even Devin was like, yeah, man. Yeah, you totally deserve your time. You got this. You got this.
To be fair, we don't know the behind the scenes parameters of the deal. We were only showed that everyone was like, yeah. The parameters might have been we'll give you time, but we're also going to make sure we take our own time too with her, but we'll make sure that we only limit our time to, let's say, 5 minutes. Do you understand? Like, we don't know what the parameters were.
Either way,
Okay.
who cares? They said, let's do this.
So now we're towards the end of the group after party, and Aaron again pulls Devin aside and calls Devin Dylan yet again.
But my name's not Dylan.
And, Devin, to be fair, is like, you keep pulling me aside wanting to talk to me about things and you can't even get my name right.
Yes.
So it's
yes.
like, that's not helping you any. Aaron continues to call out Devin and tries to educate him on why his behavior is wrong and his approach is wrong, and presents Devin with a book called Principles of Self-Growth by Dr. Brandon O'Connor. And according to everybody in Bachelor Nation, this book was presented to Aaron's brother Noah when he was a suitor on a previous season of Bachelorette. So this book has come full circle. Devin's like, okay, yeah, thanks, bro. Thanks for the book. And, I'll read it someday. Aaron is very self-righteous, a real a-hole in this moment, because it's like, hey, you're not doing things right. So I immediately researched this book because I wanted to know. I couldn't find it.
So did I. I Googled it. I was like, let me just look up this book. Let's see if this is a real book.
Yeah. So we've since learned it doesn't exist.
Nope, it does not exist. That was heavy producer handling there of them saying, here, give them this book.
Yeah.
Have this conversation.
And then there's articles saying, wow, with this whole book thing, wow, we're really seeing how things are manipulated and staged. Everything, they just got caught because they were lazy about it. Or they were doing it to create a conversation around the show.
I'm not quite sure why Aaron would want to be seen as this person, because it does not put him in a good light, giving him this book, quite frankly. But what was very funny to me was the fact that they cut to Devin talking about this book, and his little card where it said his name said, still not Dylan.
But my name's not Dylan. You don't even know my name.
So now this is what then takes us into the cocktail party.
That is correct. We have the cocktail party. The guys assume that they're going to have their chance with Jenn. Jenn walks in.
Yeah.
The very first guy to pull her aside, once again, is Devin. And that's when I was done with Devin. That's when I was like, I'm done with him. I'm done with him. He's being ridiculous. I think he's being selfish. I understand this is a game. I understand this is a competition, but it was not cool for me.
Again, like, this is how it's played. Like, I can't, like, here's the thing. Devin knows the rules, and he's playing by the rules. Nobody else wants him to play by the rules because they are failing at playing by the rules. So they want him to fail. I mean, it's just competitive jealousies and egos. And as far as I'm concerned, Aaron is not a serious competitor. I think he is a plant by the producer just to stir the pot. And I think that's all he is. He's just a pot stirring Derek Huff wannabe.
Look, what I'll say is this. I disagree with your comment on Devin. I feel like I should never play a game with you because you would cheat and you'd be unfair.
I would never cheat with you.
Either way, when this happens, all the other guys are talking shit about Devin while he's away with Jenn, saying this is ridiculous, this is this. And then for some reason, I believe it was Sam who said, Thomas, you go ahead and you go first. And Thomas Wynn proceeds to go first. I did think he was going to just go and interrupt and sit with Jenn, but instead he pulls Devin aside, proceeds to like yell at him for like, I don't know, 10 minutes. Jenn is sitting there awkwardly. She's nodding along in agreement with whatever it was that Devin was saying, which I was like, that's not good for you. And it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, he did embarrass himself. And then even when he sat down with Jenn, Jenn was like, well, what exactly did he say? Either way, this was 10 minutes. You could have been talking to me. And I do feel like in that moment, Thomas realized he made a mistake. He did make a mistake. And I think he felt it and he knew it.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 1,000%. As they were arguing, Jenn kind of like is sitting there alone with her Prosecco, as is mentioned later on.
And then I got to leave Jenn there looking like a fool. Nobody's sitting there talking to her. She's just sitting there staring at her Prosecco.
And she's listening around the corner and like eavesdropping, like you said. And she seemed to be totally in agreement with whatever Devin was saying in defense of himself. I love that Jenn kind of gave Thomas a dressing down in a gentle way by saying, by you trying to dictate who spends time with me. You're taking away my independence, my agency. And
Yes.
there was all that time I'm sitting alone. You could have been talking to me. Other guys could have been talking to me. Like it was kind of it was a fool move.
I think she gave him a really good talking down in
Yeah.
a gentle way, as you said.
Yeah.
It was, and I think he had a wake-up call. People make mistakes. They do stupid things. I think he made
Yeah.
mistakes. We'll find out later on about his character, I'm assuming. But then at that point, before he can really have a real conversation with her, then Sam
Mhm.
comes in,
Yeah.
pulls her aside to a separate part of this building they're in to
Yeah.
have their date. She basically says, like, you fluster me. She told him directly, you fluster me. That's why I didn't pick you for the solo date, and that's why I didn't pick you for this other date, because you fluster me. And then, of course, before they can have any sort of solid actual conversation about their lives, about
Yeah.
their wants, about anything at all, they start making out.
Hard.
Okay.
Making out
Hard.
hard. I actually wrote that in my note in caps. Make out hard.
Hard makeout, yeah.
He is relying on his raw sexuality, and he's using the chemistry that they have to kind of bypass the emotional connection, which
Yes.
means that he either is emotionally unavailable or he doesn't think he's really that deep enough to win her affection. So he's going to rely on the physical. Whatever's going on, he doesn't deserve to really be on the show that much longer. But apparently he's really good at kissing. So there you have it. And then there's kind of a string of Jenn with different suitors chatting and then giving a kiss to each.
Kissing.
She kisses Jonathon. She kisses Spencer. So that's kind of how it goes. Then they cut to Thomas N kind of telling Thomas A, that he was good. He's talking tough, like, I'm gonna punch Devin, and like he's really getting into. And then of course Devin couldn't leave well enough alone, and then Devin approaches Thomas. So then there's more heated words exchanged between the two.
And that's when I thought that Devin was too much, because then he was specifically trying to get a reaction out of Thomas on purpose, even though Thomas was like, leave me alone, go back inside. He kept like pushing at him. That's when I was like, Devin, okay, now you're being too much. But what I will say, and it's not because I enjoyed the testosterone. In that moment, when Thomas was outside with Devin and he had that little string of hair that came down, I was like, this man is hot. He's giving me like Colin Farrell. I don't know. I felt it. It was like an Asian Colin Farrell for me. I don't know. I felt it. It looked like him, that little string. It looked just like him.
So you liked his fiery passion and ferocious love?
No. I did not enjoy the testosterone. I did not enjoy that. But the look,
he kind of did. But see, but that hair, the way the hair is indicative of an aggression, because it's like, I'm so out of sorts. My hair is getting messy. Like I think you kind of like the testosterone thing, because that's what he was giving off.
I did not enjoy the testosterone, but I did enjoy like the heavily sweaty look that he was giving me. I enjoyed that look. It was a good look for him.
I do not like that look, at least on him.
In that moment, you didn't like it?
I did not. No, I didn't. Here's the thing. You know what? I want to see actions. I don't want to keep hearing words. If you're really going to go after him, go after him. Show us what you're made of, Thomas.
This is why you and Devin get along. Either way. From that point, I think basically the evening kind of wraps up, and then we go, at this point, Jesse comes out. And
okay,
this is
I'm glad you
most most exhausted I've ever seen Jesse on any episode. Like he was begrudgingly like, it's the rose ceremony. Let's go. Like he was so like
he was. Jesse walks in amidst all the suitors sitting in this lounge, and Thomas and Devin, they're still exchanging heated words. Everyone else is kind of like, just, oh God, let this be over.
Yeah.
And then Jesse walks into the room, and I was like, I got chills, because I was like, oh, Jesse is going to lay the smack down on them. I said, Jesse is going to put an end to this. He's going to say some harsh words to end the fighting.
No,
he did not. He was just like, Gentlemen, sorry to interrupt. Cocktail party has ended and it's, time for the rose ceremony. And he just like slinks out of there. I was like, he
Yes.
must have just arrived in Australia and he's still dealing with time difference,
Yes.
jet lag or something. He seemed so like, I'm over this, but man, did he look good. The more tired he is, the better he looks.
Shut up.
I don't know why.
I don't think he looked as good this time just because he did look super exhausted. He did look like he was like on a different time zone.
He did, but
looked-
his hair looked great. His suit looked well. His bespoke suits are just awesome. I love them.
Either way, Jesse, you need to go take a nap, dude. I respect for you,
Okay.
but just get some sleep. So after Jesse comes in, exhausted, not wanting to be here, and says there's a rose ceremony, it begins. It's pretty anticlimactic because they already kind of guessed who she was going to pick, right? And I'm like, well, you're going to have to keep Devin because he's annoying. And I'm
Right.
like, I think you have to keep Thomas because Thomas and Devin could go at it at some point. So for me,
Yeah.
it was not really that big of a deal.
Yes. So Jenn gives roses to the following suitors: Austin, Hakeem, Spencer, Jeremy, Jonathon, John, Tomas or Thomas A, Sam M, Devin, Sam N, Aaron, and Thomas N. And then Jenn already gave roses to Dylan, Marcus, and Grant. So at this point, we say goodbye to Marvin, Brian, and Jahan.
Oh, okay. That's where he goes. All right,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have it. Now I
That's it.
actually thought Brian was going to be given more time because he seemed like this very easygoing, big personality, which we know Jenn likes. But maybe Devin is a big enough personality that you don't need more than one.
And it seems like the first night Brian had a lot to drink, and this night he was like, I overdid it. I can't have any more shots.
He
I
was
gotta just chill
quiet.
out.
He was
quiet.
Yeah, he was quiet. I was also wondering how much the time difference played into a lot of the behaviors because they did seem like there was generally low energy to me. It
Okay.
seemed like they
Yeah.
were low energy.
Yeah.
Um,
That's fair. That's
you know-
exhausting to travel from California to Australia and then tape. The
Yeah.
time zone is ridiculous.
Right. It did seem like a lot. Well, that's all we got for you. Tune into Romance Recap next week. And remember, if it ain't ferocious, then it ain't true love.